is 6/15/2022. I'm Diane Barrett with the BE Collection, and I'm here with Christie Braziel. Did I say that correctly?
You did, just like the country. I have an extra vowel, but it's pronounced exactly the same.
Huh. It's an interesting name.
It's actually a married name.
Uh-huh.
My husband was Portuguese French, apparently, origin.
Mm-hmm.
His mother used to say it was actually pronounced Braziel, but she had a tendency to be a little pretentious. So I dumped the husband, but I kept the name.
You like the name?
I did. My maiden name was Atkins, and it was just not all that interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Though someone once told me Christie Braziel sounded like a stripper on Broadway in San Francisco, and
I don't know if I said that, but
if I ever wanted another career, I could go in that direction.
well, it definitely has a style to it.
Yeah, thank you.
No,
I like it.
That. I was curious about it. So, do you still like your husband?
I have not been in contact with him for over 30 years.
Wow.
So I really don't know what happened to him.
Mm-hmm. That it's interesting. I hear now a lot of separations as people come out, this kind of thing. Some are in contact, most are not in much contact. Most.
Yeah, ours was, I'm pretty sure, just a marriage of convenience.
Uh-huh.
He was a decent enough guy. He was a Vietnam vet, so he had his own issues from that war. But he wasn't at all ever abusive towards me in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
It was more just like a nice friendship. But I think even when I married him, the day I married him, I knew that was the right thing to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I was not in touch with my authentic self, and was going to be a long time until that happened. And, at the age of 20 and almost out of college, it was the thing you did.
That's true.
So I did what I was expected to do, what I thought I was supposed to do, and
Mm-hmm.
found a decent enough guy, and lost my virginity to him. Wasn't pregnant when we got married, but was married for almost exactly 7 years to the weekend.
Right.
So was definitely an itch going on, and really have never looked back. I've never regretted it since then.
Do you have any homosexuals besides yourself and your family that you know about?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Probably mild suspicions, but it's up to them to come to terms with that, and I'm going to leave it.
That's what I have too. Mild suspicions. Somebody sending me a rainbow, this kind of thing, and I don't really know them, so I think they're trying to say something, but it's not clear what it is. But interestingly enough, when I asked the question, I'd say 80% of the women have some genetic link.
Any scientific background or basis for them determining there could be a genetic component to this?
I'm sure there is. I'm not aware of it. It's just something I personally have been curious about.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I get, yesterday we interviewed someone who's a twin, and her brother was a twin, and he was gay. Her brother was obviously a twin, but anyway, he was also gay. And so that was good information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a curiosity.
Someday.
And the other thing is, I'd like to be able to offer to women over 30, we're thinking of changing that actually, a place to go to listen to our stories. And I personally think that they don't want to sit there forever. So we're doing the shorter stories. They can get the information that they might like. And we put their career, whether it's teacher, publicist, doctor, lawyer, Indian, so they can instantly access that information if they choose to. And get information about who we are, what we've done, the fact that we lived through thinking we were suicidal and we made it and we're still alive, that kind of stuff. People have been very candid about their information, which I appreciate.
I've watched some of the interviews. I was impressed.
Good. Which ones did you watch? Do you recall?
Well, people that I knew, Trudy, not Trudy, well, Pat and Barb, just because I'm very familiar with them. Pat Thompson and her story, and
Mhm.
participated a bit in the documentary movie made about her life, or their lives, I should say.
Right. That's right.
And
Do you know Greta and Diane? Greta Cameron and her.
I watched hers just because I knew her story was part of Pat's, but I've never met her personally, but that was fun to watch as well too. And then I'm trying to think of the other, Tandy Bowman.
Right.
It was the one that put us in touch with you, I think, or maybe it was Pat and Barb, but and I think those were the three primarily. Two of them I knew, Greta I knew of, and so interesting. And then just did a quick scroll through the others.
Right. No, we've interviewed about over 80 women now, and we just do it through the network, like yourself and Linda referring, and so we're not advertising, and we haven't had to.
Yeah.
I like this way. I sort of know who I'm going to be talking with, and I like that.
Sure. No, I think it makes it a lot more conversational and comfortable for you and whoever you're speaking to, because conversations can disclose a lot.
That's right. And my partner Marge, you'll meet her on when you do your couples interview, which is pretty soon. So now we've done all that. Where were you born?
Oh, I was born in San Mateo, in the San Francisco Bay Area.
And are you still in contact with your family, your biologic family?
My mother and father have passed in the last 3 to 7-ish years or so. And my two brothers I'm in contact with semi-regularly, and they live in Oregon now. They used to live in San Diego and Arizona, respectively, but they both moved to Oregon. And that's my total family. I have one other cousin that I see from time to time that lives up in Washington, but my father was an only child, so had no brothers or sisters and no cousins on that side of the family. And my mom had 2 brothers only, and they each had 1 son. So we come from a very small little tribe.
I'm from a small family, and my partner is one of 6. And all her siblings have had 5 to 6 children. So
that's a passel, all right. Yeah.
I thought, whoa, I guess I wanted a large family. I have it now. What would you say is your greatest adventure in your life so far?
I'm gonna say getting sober.
Okay, that's good for you.
33 plus years ago. Just because I wouldn't be sitting here right now, I'm sure, by either alcohol itself or the results of alcohol and some prescription drugs along the way. But I'm not. It's the best thing I've ever done. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, and yet the easiest thing in many ways, just because not taking a drink doesn't really affect any of the rest of my life, just my psychology. And that's easy enough to stop. People that have other addictions like food or something like that, I think it's a lot more complicated. But luckily I found a good family to help me do that, actually, which is.
How old were you when you started to see maybe this is a problem?
Oh, I probably knew I was an alcoholic when I was married to my husband. I mean, I frequently talk in meetings about how when I was young, all I wanted to do was grow up. I wanted to be an adult because, as soon as I grew up, then I would understand how the world works. Then I would have some kind of power and control and not be subservient to somebody else's rules, etc. And only to find out that I'm still waiting for that to happen.
Right. I'll let you know.
I didn't have control over that kind of thing. And so I had to self-soothe myself because I couldn't get the answers. And I was just driven by, one of our books says, driven by 1,000 forms of fear. And, that I wasn't good enough. And I think underlying all of that, to be thematic here, was that I was not in touch at all with my sexual orientation, and I wasn't ready to look at it. And so it was easier to push that down. And alcohol helped me do that, helped me, ignore. And so for years, I thought I probably had a drinking problem, but I did not see any way out because I didn't know how to live in the world without drinking being a big part of it. Everything in my life was, I was either drinking, thinking about drinking, or being regretful about drinking.
Wow. And you were doing drugs at the same time?
Prescription drugs from time to time. I never did anything other than marijuana at the time, which wasn't legal, but it ended up making me paranoid towards the end. So I went back to just drinking. And that's socially acceptable, and you can do it in any kind of setting, kind of thing.
Right now it's really increased in popularity, I think. So,
I'm not sure I'd call it popularity, but yeah, it's
certainly so creative, and this flavor, that flavor, this. I mean, I go to Al-Anon. So
yeah, okay. So you know some of the journey. So
that's right.
I probably for 10 or 15 years before I actually got sober, knew there was a problem, didn't, any day now I'm going to quit was kind of the mantra. And not until I hit 36 years old did I say.
Did you have a lesbian relationship before that?
I did not. In fact, I'm a little unique in that I only came out 5 years ago. Okay. In fact, during Pride Month. In 2005, or I'm sorry, 2015. I went in the parade with my church.
Really?
And interestingly enough, upon reflection, I realized that coming to terms with my sexual orientation and coming out was very much parallel and similar to coming to terms with my drinking and ultimately deciding to get sober. All the same kind of denials and rationalizations and compensations that happen with drinking, frequently happen in not being able to really understand and or look at or honestly evaluate sexual orientation. And I've realized, certainly in retrospect, after talking to a lot of people that even, that came out when they were teenagers or in their 20s, a very similar journey. It's not that much different from any of us. We do such a dreadful job in our society of dealing with sexuality generally, and with any quote unquote deviations from the norm in a healthy way at all. So it's no wonder that we all struggle with this so desperately until we can finally cross that threshold.
You were at the Pride Parade with your church group?
Yes. Yeah.
And then you decided, this is where I belong. I fit here. This kind of.
Actually, I had already done some of my background work on coming to terms with who I was. And I've realized now too, in retrospect, that a big part of that was tied into my work life. And while I was still working, I was not feeling at all safe psychologically or physically to come out, and that my job would be in jeopardy, and that I was the sole earner of my income and had no one else to ever be able to rely on, that I could not jeopardize that. And I chose to stay closeted in my real world and within my mind and my heart because it was safer.
Well, I thank you for this because you're the first person who has discussed this. And this is, many people confront this. And it's part of the whole process as you're intertwining it. So thank you for doing that.
So
thank you.
Yeah. And actually, I misspoke. It was 2017 when I went through the.
Okay.
Parade 5 years ago.
We won't hold you to the days.
Yeah.
So were you with Linda then at that time?
No, I had not met anyone at all. I had found actually this really amusing, cute little meetup group online that it was called something like Foothill Explorers, but the subtitle was Women of a Later Age Exploring Their Sexual Orientation. Join us if you want to do that.
Really?
And I thought, well, this sounds safe enough, and we meet at a coffee shop every first Saturday of the month. So pop in if you want to. And so I went to check these gals out, and it was a really interesting, eclectic group of women, anywhere from, mid 40s on. And at that point, I would have been like late 60s, who had, many of them had marriages, had children, but said, I'm just at the point where I'm thinking, is that all there is? And this just doesn't still feel or seem right. Mm-hmm. And so we talk about, well, what do you think it's going to be like when we have sex? And I don't know, am I going to be able to do that? And is that really important? Do I just want a companion? And it was a really interesting, fun group. And one of my favorite anecdotes out of it was early on, I said, well, I'm thinking that I'm probably bisexual because, I still find myself attracted to men. And I love nothing better than seeing a man without his shirt running in the springtime alongside the road. And, so I'm thinking that may be the case. And they all just accepted that. And then after I came to terms with the fact, and talking to a good friend of mine who is a lesbian and has known me for a long time and kind of been on the journey with me, she said, Christie, think about this situation and that time. I'm thinking you're not really bi, you're probably a lesbian. And I said, oh, you're right. And I went back to this group and I said, well, ladies, I have a news bulletin for you. It turns out I'm not bisexual. I'm a lesbian. I'm a full-fledged lesbian. And one of the gals said, yes, bisexuality, the gateway drug to lesbianism. Which as a recovering alcoholic was twice as funny for me.
Commitment to nothing, we used to say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, good for you. I'm glad you're lesbian.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it really was another awakening. Just like life is possible without alcohol and drugs, it is also possible to be my own kind of woman who happens to also be a lesbian and not have to let either of those go.
Right.
Which, when I was first exploring this, I said to a friend of mine, am I going to have to drive a truck and buy leather if I declare myself as a lesbian? And she said, no, Christie, that's really not necessary. And, but
so now you have a little pickup now?
The mythological stereotypes that go with any misunderstanding or lack of information, again, because we don't talk about it, it's all secrets. And if you don't know the secret code, you can't get the secret message, and, et cetera, is another serious downfall of.
Well, now we're talking society. This is about.
This is a darn good place to do it, and one of the reasons I'm happy to do so. I sent you that video that Linda and I did on coming out, and we were very pleased with that as well too, because it was a declaration of our own stories and those of a few friends of ours that we felt was really powerful. And
how about your career? How did that develop?
Well, I like to say, as one of my bosses said to me once, I've kind of had a career by drift. When I was young, my goal was to either be Davy Crockett or Annie Oakley. So it's not like I always knew what I wanted to do or wanted to be. And even in college,
thinking
that could be.
Right.
Even in college, initially I was going to be a PE teacher because I was really good at athletics, not knowing when I went off to college that they actually require quite a bit of science from you when you are going to be a physical education teacher. And anatomy almost killed me, and the idea of doing kinesiology or any other of the science courses. And I did not have good study habits, just terrified me. So I segued and went down another road and thought, oh, well, I really like literature and English. Maybe I'll just be an English major, and then started exploring some of that. And that kind of wafted over time into theater, which really was my love. And I never knew it all along.
At that time, was that undergrad that you were thinking all these various?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you progressed to graduate school?
Well, I didn't go to graduate school. Actually, I in the first 2 years or so, I was kind of drifting around. By my third year, I was pretty well committed to theater and drama as my degree and my interest. However, by that time I was married, and I did know that I wasn't ever going to be going to New York or Hollywood to explore careers. I was really what I like to call an academic thespian. I just loved learning about and performing from time to time, but not with any seriousness, to being a career choice. It was just, I loved performing. I loved the whole alter ego experience of being able to be someone else. Probably too, because at some level I was still struggling with my own sexuality, with my use of alcohol, with why I'm married, and why I don't feel compelled to have children, and all that kind of thing. So if I could step out of who I was in my real world and step into being somebody else, that's cool. And how
about now?
Well, now I kind of do. I'm a big supporter of theater, and I love going to just about any kind of theater. And I'm one of those people, if they ask for people to come up on the stage, I'm happy to go do that. Good. Actually, I'm recently performed in a readers theater program at a community center that put it out on YouTube, and we all read parts of real women in history of Sacramento and California who have been cooks or started restaurants or worked in restaurants, family restaurants, that kind of thing. And so I kind of dabble in it from time to time. I've done some children's theater and been dressed up as I'm 5'9", so I was a goose, which is a very large goose. And I've been a Dalmatian dog, which was a very large dog, and sang a song about meatballs, so.
So you're flexible.
Absolutely. So, anything in the theatrical realm. Pardon me?
You look like you really enjoy it.
I do. I really do. It speaks to me.
So how do you financially support yourself?
Well, I'm retired now, and luckily the last job I had, which was my dream job after all the others I had, and I can talk about those in between. I was laid off, unfortunately, in 2013. And I think because of age, I think I ran up against ageism in trying to find a new job, even though I was highly qualified. Ended up retiring. But the last job I had gone with this company specifically because they had a really good 401k retirement program and matching funds. And so I used the last 9-10 years of my life working there to really build up my retirement. So between that and Social Security, and my house is paid off, I'm doing okay. I'm not taking any trips to Europe as my financial planner said, but I wasn't doing that before. So
what was that job?
The last job I had was with an insurance company, and I was what was called a corporate communications specialist, which was an internal position in my particular situation to the customer service department. And I was in charge of internal communications to the customer service team of employees to keep them current on what they needed to know in order to give world-class customer service to the people that called in. And that was anything from doing, memos to trainings to papers to videos to whatever was needed to be able to keep them and their skills sharp to offer the best possible customer service. And
interesting blend of heady and emotional, huh?
Very. And I got to be very creative, and I was relatively autonomous. I was just a one-person act in the whole department, and pretty much anything I proposed, they always signed off on. Said, that's great, distribute it or send it out plus I got to plan parties and participate in parties to celebrate the workforce. So, it doesn't get much better than that.
No.
Well, except when I was working in the sailing industry for a while, recreational sailing, and I was still drinking. That was a grand job because we got to drink while working. Mm-hmm. And it was totally sanctioned because we were in the recreation business, and we were trying to encourage people to buy sailboats or, have fun on sailboats, which always includes drinking. Didn't help my disease any, but it was a damn good job. Didn't make any money either.
You still attend AA?
I do.
Good. You're a very interesting person.
Well, thank you very much.
Right.
Very sweet.
Where did you meet Linda? Sailing?
Believe it or not, no, sailing had a little bit to do with it because we both have that interest. Believe it or not, on Match.com.
Okay.
Which I had been on Match.com for years as an alleged heterosexual, and I never had any kind of luck at all. I either never got any kind of responses from anybody or anything that was positive. And so I had given up on that. And then when I had come to terms with my own orientation and come out, I had tried a couple of free sites that don't charge anything and had not been really encouraged by that. And I just said, oh, I'm going to bite the bullet because I'm really ready to meet somebody seriously.
Yeah.
And posted on Match.com. And Linda, who's not at all technologically adept, had a roommate at the time who said, I'm going to put you on Match.com, and put her profile up and her picture. And just about the same time I had posted mine, and she was scanning through people, and I was the first person she saw, and she contacted me and we talked and went on our first date. And because she said she was also interested, or was a sailor and had a boat, though she sold it the day before we met each other.
Oh, no.
Kind of a bait and switch, if you ask me. And she was also a golfer from time to time. There were some common interests, and we got together and we just really clicked. And, we escalated in our relationship, which I consider kind of a God thing. At the age of 65, I really didn't want to have to kiss a lot of frogs, male or female, again. I just really didn't want to go through the whole pains of dating. And I'd gone to lunch and coffee with a couple of other women, and they were kind of meh. And we just, the fact that we clicked so well and really started spending a lot of time with, and she was so very gentle and accepting of me as being really a virgin lesbian and not knowing anything about anything, and not even knowing if I wanted a sexual relationship and not just, something otherwise physical and platonic. She was very gentle and easy, and everything just unfolded as it should. So
that's great.
Yeah.
There was a woman that came out at 80, so she has you beat.
Really? Geez, I was going for that prize too.
I'm sorry. I don't want to.
Good for her. I mean, good for anybody.
What? Pat Thompson. She says in her interview she came out at 80.
Oh, because she kept it quiet.
That's right.
For her career for so long. Yeah.
There are things you'd like to add.
I think too, I guess if I wanted to create some kind of thread for your viewers,
Okay.
The fact that I wasn't intending to be a career actor or actress doesn't mean that there aren't invaluable or priceless gifts and skills that I acquired by virtue of being a theater major. My careers have benefited from that at a lot of different points, and on retrospect realized that, first of all, the creativity that's necessary for acting is an inherent value system, and that carries through a lot of jobs, whatever it is you might be doing. I mean, you can be taught the skills to be a computer programmer, but interpersonal soft skills are something that can't be taught nearly as easily and are really evolved and developed over time and experience. And I think there's a lot of soft skills, as it were, with theater that have served me quite well over the years.
Just that outreach.
I think that's
right.
That's a big part of it, as well as, there's so many kids. I remember when I was in even elementary school, and when they had to give a report in front of the class or even read out loud, they would just go pale and practically pass out. And there's a lot of adults that feel the same way still. I get nervous, but I'm not reluctant. I'm I'm one to happily be able to say, okay, I'll give that presentation. I'll create that PowerPoint and make those talking points easy for people to understand, or, I'll do that workshop, or I'll be happy to speak out during that staff meeting because I'm not feeling insecure that I don't have a voice, and I think those kinds of skills, as well as just kind of the general public relations persona that comes from being able to be comfortable in an on-stage setting, means that many times in a corporate setting or any kind of business setting, those skills are needed. And I've realized in retrospect that they served me well. And so, I've made jokes before. My mama said that theater wasn't going to do me no good at all. And that's not really true. It served me well.
Statement, right.
Yeah.
So are you involved in a gay center where you live?
I'm not. It's not a really strong center at this point that I'm aware of, but it's not something that's really called to me.
It would be wonderful if you could have contact with young lesbians actors. I think that, hiding sexuality still goes on.
Of course.
Yeah, and I don't see that stopping, actually, but certainly not in my lifetime, but just generally. And you have such a presence, and your story so real and believable.
I'll give that some thought. That could be a good suggestion. Let's see if we can.
Because you survived the struggle, and here we have a huge center with a lot of volunteer opportunities. But you can create your own.
True.
Yeah, you don't need guidance. You just need a forum, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is me.
Thanks for planting the seed.
Right. You never know.
Interestingly enough, Linda on the reverse is that person that's terrified at doing any kind of public speaking, and really has to be cajoled along. And I wrote the script for her and did the PowerPoint for her for the coming out video that we did, just because the idea of her doing it live was just an impossible situation for her. So I said, well, why don't I put together a slideshow and you can talk over it, and you won't even have to be on camera. And I'll write the script for you too. And only because I was willing to do that for her was she able to do that, because otherwise she was just totally immobilized.
She did fine on her interview.
I'm sure she did. Well, she was talking too about her baby. Especially Mom Guess What newspaper is her heart and soul and spirit on so many levels. In fact, she and I have joked, that it's really funny that I came out so late in life, and she ends up being my partner, who has had so much visibility over the years and was referred to lovingly by many people in this area as the head lesberado.
She didn't say that.
And here I am, this new little big guy.
Couples interview, right?
And we make quite a pair to draw to, but everything happens for a reason, and I'm sure it's God's way of unfolding for us exactly the right kind of partner that we needed.
So if you knew shortly that your life was going to end, how would you like to be remembered?
I think as someone who was authentic and of service to others and created joy.
That's great. I can see that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Not that I'm in any hurry to die.
No. I'm not planting that seed. It's just a reflection. This is the legacy part of this is so reflective. So that's the final reflection. So thank you. I look forward to seeing you and Linda soon.
Thank you. This is a delight. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Feel free
project.
to come back at us with your ideas, because you can see we're looking to keep creating, so to speak.
Well, good for you for seizing the moment and seizing the day, as it were, when COVID came and said, so what brings me joy? This would be it. Mm-hmm. And There's nothing like it. I recently actually read an article about a library where you can go and check people out to have a conversation with them.
What a good idea.
One of my many jobs was working for the California Library Association at one point for a 10-year stint. And it was a not-for-profit organization that primarily did legislative advocacy on behalf of libraries and librarians. And that was in the early 90s when the internet was just hitting the streets, as it were. And there were so many people that said, well, with the internet, we're not going to need libraries anymore. And the librarians would just, go apoplectic and say, yeah, that's not true. And I'll tell you why. You still need somebody to help you find the right information in the right places and be able to vet it. And that's what we do as librarians. I remember saying to a librarian once, you must be really smart because you know so much about what's going on. And she said, well, I appreciate that, but what I really know is where to find things. That's what a librarian does, is they help you find things. And if you can't find them, then whatever you're looking for isn't going to get the right answers. And I think even though things are digital, we know from our own experience that people are not necessarily finding the right, true, honest things and get diverted. And so librarians are really our guideposts that point us in the right direction to get us whatever the truth might be, or the whole.
Where does that fit in terms of, see, to me, when I thought about that, I thought, all these women have written books. I love books. I love libraries. I've had a positive library experience from growing up with one. And look up Carolyn Weathers. We're going to interview her next week, I think. She was a librarian here. She's very, so I see it as a space. And then I thought, well, with all this digital stuff, so much for your idea, Diane. Probably.
Yeah. Well, no, I think librarians are the quintessential navigators of truth. And
well, I agree with that, but would a space work? Would you go to a space?
Well, so maybe it needs to be some out-of-the-box thinking needs to be considered of how do you reinvent that kind of idea in a contemporary milieu that we have of the internet and digital works, and make it work for a younger audience and an older audience too, that, gives us the richness of what libraries give us when you have physical books and lots of shelves. But in a digital way. I
haven't given it up. I'm still.
Yeah. I think it's doable. I believe anything's possible. We need to be creative in our thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So keep thinking.
Okay.
Thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you, Diane. I appreciate it very much.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.